Per Tom Pelissero, the Browns wanted at least a second rounder without paying any of Baker's contract. You give us a second rounder and take his contract, we'll make a deal. Note, some teams didn't think he was a first rounder when he was drafted by the Cleveland Browns. So I believe the situation was
number one overall. They didn't believe he was a first rounder when he's drafted number one overall.
Some teams, allegedly, this is via the Arrow Pelissero, who just gets an absolute memo, and it was reported by Billy Spike, Stove Kleiman. The Browns initially wanted at least a second rounder and more for Baker Mayfield while refusing to take on any of the money of his contract, per Tom Pelissero. Also notes that some of the NFL teams didn't even believe he was a first rounder in 2018 draft when the Browns drafted him number one overall. Now, that might just be a bunch of bullshit because
I'd like to read their notes. I want to see their notes from 2018 where they said they gave him a second round grade. It's easy to say that now, obviously.
Yeah, it's very easy to be like, no, we didn't even like him coming out. We thought third rounder probably just. And obviously we were right. You know, a lot of obviously we were right conversations happening with insiders by GMs, I would assume, and other people around the NFL just from what we read. But this Baker Mayfield situation, he might play this year, they're saying. They just signed Jacoby Brissett. They have no idea what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson's suspension. Roger Goodell said a decision's not imminent. Roger Goodell said, maybe, I don't know. Hey, Raj, when are you going to decide what the punishment is for Deshaun? When we get all the information in. What does that mean? All of the information? Yeah. That could be, what is he doing right now? How is this conversation going over? There is zero end in sight to that entire thing, I think, personally. After seeing one of the depositions, by the way, I don't know how many more of those we're going to see. Deshaun's going to probably hope none of those. I mean, that was very uncomfortable to watch, as is the entire situation. The Cleveland Browns are going through it right now. But they bring in Jacoby. Deshaun Watson's deal is only worth $1 million next year. I think everybody in that place is thinking that Deshaun's probably not playing next year for a good portion of the game, of the season. Baker Mayfield might play again. They're going to be stuck with Baker unless they cut him. I think the rest of the NFL knows, like, hey, you're fucked, pal. You just gave $230 million guaranteed to another quarterback. Baker's people have already publicly said we want out of here. I guess Baker is he's going on the You Never Know podcast with Mike Stud and them.
Yeah.
I think he's going on there. There's going to be a lot of clips because we got an email from the producer of that podcast and said, hey, there's going to be a lot of things coming out of this podcast with Baker that you're going to want to talk to. And then this guy was like, dead set on me calling him or FaceTiming him to talk about it. And
who are these guys? What show?
The YNK podcast. Mike Stud, great rapper, singer. He's kind of transitioned into a media guy now at this point. He has a podcast. He lives a great life out in LA if his social media is anything like his actual life. Him and Manziel, I believe, are out there. I believe there's an entire crew. I think Post Malone was running with him for a bit. I mean, it is... Seems like a great time, the life they're living. But they had Baker Mayfield on, I guess, and they talked about everything. And the producer, I forget his name, Luke or something like that, he hit us up and he was like, hey, let's call and let's talk about it. And I'm like, dude, perfect right now. You know? Yeah. Like, I am so sorry. But if you guys release this, which I assume you're going to, we will certainly talk about it because Baker Mayfield is a huge focal point to the entire drama happening away from the football field right now.
Well, in Baker's best case scenario, and I guess this is with the Browns, aside from Deshaun just playing the entire year, like if he goes out in those first 4 games and just absolutely lights it up, you got to assume teams then will be like, okay, yeah, we'll give you a second rounder, we'll take on his contract for the rest of the year. Because
depending upon how desperate.
There's no way he's playing games for that team. There's no way. His agent, they're going to do everything they can to force them to cut him. He wants to be a free agent.
And if he's cut, he's already guaranteed some money, right?
Yes.
So then he can double dip, get paid somewhere else, and go somewhere else. But the Browns have openly said via their sources, we don't care. Hey, we're not trading you. We might have no fucking quarterback, dude. All right? You don't like us? We don't like you either. I mean, we didn't draft you. Somebody else did. We kind of got handed you. Last year, you played every game. It didn't work out well. I had a broken humerus. I had a torn ligament in my thing. You still threw the ball 65 times that one game. Well, that was your decision. You guys were fucking me over. Baker Mayfield. He's allegedly doing a podcast. I don't know if I was supposed to break that news or not. I'm not 100% sure. He's doing a podcast, though, within the next week, I think. We're going to see clips of Baker Mayfield speaking publicly about his whole situation. Allegedly, Tom Pelissero of the Arrow reported that they wanted a second rounder and for another team to pick up his entire contract. Is that real? Is that not real? Everybody's just waiting on them to cut him, right? Because they know that the Browns are stuck in a position. But now we're hearing there's a chance he plays next season. Like, how does this whole thing shape up, you think?
First of all, I'm kind of interested to hear from Baker as well. My guess is that he probably sounds a little bit like he sounded when he put that little note. And I know the note was like pre-planned and whatever, but I don't get the sense there's a lot of nuance to Baker. So like, he's probably going to be hurt by this. He probably is going to talk about how much he loved Cleveland and explain, why he wanted to be traded. I get all of it. But Baker Mayfield would have been the quarterback of the Browns had they not traded for Deshaun Watson. So even amid all this, I do believe this was something that was going to be fixable. As far as what Pelissero reported, I believe initially at the beginning of all this, that's what the Browns were hoping for Baker, was for someone else to take on the salary in the second rounder. It's not going to be that now. I think the salary is fully guaranteed. They're probably going to have to eat some of it. And there is precedent. I mean, last year, the Panthers traded Teddy Bridgewater to the Broncos right before the draft, ate some salary. It was a late round pick, I think a 6th rounder. And that was a pretty fair deal for a guy who ended up starting. My sense is the trade ends up looking similar to that. Mid to late rounder, the Browns picking up some of the contract, but not all of it. And Baker Mayfield ends up in a new spot. That's a win for everyone.
Okay.
Ian, when's that timetable? Is that something that may happen like during the draft, or when do you expect this?
I would say probably in the couple days before the draft is generally the window there, because the leverage, I guess, for the Panthers is to be like, well, we're just going to take a guy, and maybe they do, maybe they want to, but if they don't want to, if they're not in love with this group of quarterback at in the top 10 where they are, either 6 or 7, I forget, then they could just get Baker Mayfield, have him come in, compete with Sam Darnold, may the best man win, and see if you can kind of reclaim what Baker probably would have been / should have been before the injury. If it doesn't happen, then the Panthers take one, and then the market is holding on to him, waiting for someone else to get injured, which, sometimes happen in the preseason, but doesn't always happen. So, that's the scenario where they could just hold him. I don't get the sense they would cut him, because you're not paying him till the regular season anyway, so there's no option or anything you need to get out from under. They could just keep him and wait for someone to get injured.